Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, where we break down South Africa's biggest political stories and what they really mean for you. Today, we are diving deep into a saga that's rocked the nation: President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to the VAT hike debacle, the political storm around Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, and what this all reveals about South Africa's fragile coalition government. Buckle up, because this isn't just about tax policy, this is about power, accountability, and the future of economic justice in our country. Let's start with the basics. Back in March 2025, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced a highly controversial 0.5% increase in VAT, or value-added tax, to try and close a staggering R75 billion hole in the national budget. It was pitched as a necessary evil, a tough but unavoidable step in light of the country's deepening fiscal crisis. But from the moment it was proposed, the backlash was intense. Opposition parties, civil society groups, and even coalition partners were quick to condemn the move. Many argued that increasing VAT would disproportionately impact the country's poorest citizens, who are already bearing the brunt of high food prices, energy hikes, and stagnant wages. The EFF and DA, usually at opposite ends of the political spectrum, found rare common ground and joined forces to take the matter to the Western Cape High Court. And on the 27th of April, in a ruling that has been celebrated as a major constitutional victory, the court suspended the VAT increase, citing procedural irregularities in how it was pushed through. The judgment didn't just halt the tax, it exposed serious cracks in the government's internal processes and left the Treasury scrambling to fill a R28 billion gap left behind by the reversal. President Ramaphosa has since addressed the crisis publicly, urging the country to draw lessons from what he called a difficult but revealing episode. He defended the government's intent, saying that tough fiscal choices are sometimes necessary, but emphasized that transparency and public trust must never be compromised. His comments suggest a desire to steer the national conversation away from partisan finger-pointing and towards broader institutional reform. But not everyone is buying it. The economic freedom fighters have doubled down on their criticism of Finance Minister Godongwana. EFF leader Julius Malema called the VAT hike a reckless act of fiscal mismanagement and described the court ruling as a turning point in exposing what he sees as incompetence at the very top of the Treasury. The EFF is now pushing for alternative fiscal strategies, including wealth taxes and increased corporate taxation, measures they claim would spare the poor while holding the rich accountable. Curiously, despite their scathing criticism, the EFF refused to support a motion of no confidence against Godongwana, which was tabled by Jacob Zuma's Umkhonto we Sizwe party. Their reasoning? Cabinet appointments are the president's responsibility, not parliament's. This move has raised eyebrows, with some analysts suggesting that the EFF is positioning itself for a strategic alliance with the ANC, or at least leaving that door open. Meanwhile, Godongwana isn't going anywhere. He's brushed off the calls for his resignation, stating plainly that unpopular decisions come with the territory. Backed by Ramaphosa, he now faces the monumental task of revising the entire national budget by the 21st of May. With the VAT rollback creating a R28 billion shortfall, the Treasury is under immense pressure to find alternative revenue streams, without triggering even more public outrage. And that's where things get even trickier. Analysts are warning that any further attempts at austerity or regressive taxation could spark greater discontent, especially in a country where unemployment remains sky high and basic services are deteriorating. The political cost of getting this wrong could be enormous, not just for the ANC, but for the entire coalition government that was formed after the 2024 elections, when the ANC lost its parliamentary majority for the first time since 1994. Let's pause here for a moment. This isn't just a tax story. This is a litmus test for South Africa's political maturity in a post-majority era. The VAT saga has laid bare the tensions and contradictions within a multi-party coalition government. The DA is now threatening to pull out of the coalition entirely if policies like the VAT hike continue. Smaller parties like Action SA are digging in their heels, refusing to support what they see as economically harmful proposals. The risk of political paralysis is growing. President Ramaphosa is trying to project calm and unity, but the headwinds are fierce. His calls for collaborative governance and substance over theatrics are admirable, but they may not be enough to hold the government together. With the 2026 local elections fast approaching, any further missteps could erode what little public confidence remains. Let's not forget the broader economic context either. South Africa is facing sluggish growth, rising inflation, mounting debt, and international credit ratings that hang by a thread. In this environment, every fiscal decision carries massive consequences. The government must now strike a near-impossible balance between fiscal responsibility and social justice, a challenge made all the more difficult by a fractious and deeply skeptical parliament. One of the more telling aspects of this entire saga has been the role of the judiciary. By intervening and suspending the VAT hike, the Western Cape High Court reminded all of us that our democratic institutions still have teeth. Ramaphosa was quick to highlight this in his speech, calling it a demonstration of institutional resilience. But it also underscored a deeper truth: when trust in executive decisions is shaky, the courts become the last line of defense. The Treasury now has less than 3 weeks to produce a revised budget that addresses the revenue gap while maintaining public trust. That means cutting unnecessary expenditure, finding new and fair ways to raise money, and doing it all under the watchful eye of a deeply polarized electorate. For South Africans, the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just a debate about VAT, it's a fight over who should bear the cost of fixing a broken economy. It's a test of whether our political leaders can govern in the national interest, or whether they'll succumb to short-term expediency and political infighting. So, what can we take away from this? First, fiscal policy cannot be divorced from social impact. Second, coalition politics requires negotiation and compromise, not unilateral decisions. And third, public trust is not a renewable resource. Once it's lost, it's incredibly hard to win back. President Ramaphosa wants us to learn from this saga. The real question is, has his government learned anything? That's it for today's deep dive. If you found this breakdown useful, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the VAT hike was ever justifiable? Should Godongwana resign? And what alternatives do you think could help close South Africa's budget gap without hurting the poor? Thanks for watching, and as always, stay informed, stay engaged, and see you next time.